Welcome, everyone, to Buddhist Center. It's Sunday, so wonderful that we get to discuss Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. But before we get started, let me recite a verse from the King of Aspirations, the Sanche Molang, the prayer of noble conduct that we see and have heard recited before at many teachings by great teachers, and I'm now mimicking them so that I can eventually have the realizations that these great teachers have had and have. So it begins basically, with the teacher making a prayer to be able to be understood in every language, in every way possible, so that every sentient being can benefit from this teaching. And we know that when we gather virtue or we engage in a virtuous deed, the more sentient beings we do it in relation to, in terms of wanting them to have the happiness also, kind of share in that happiness that we'll be able to have as an experience of engaging in virtue. When we do virtue in relation to more and more and more beings, that virtue then allows that activity to be multiplied in incredible ways. So before we begin the teaching, I'll recite this verse from the prayer of noble conduct, and then you'll get the meaning just from when hearing it in English. Okay. Thank you again, everybody, for coming, and I hope you're having a wonderful day so far, and your mind is virtuous. And hopefully, if your mind's not virtuous, we can work on that. And if your mind is virtuous, hopefully we can work on making it as virtuous as the Buddhists. So again, thank you. Laike dan lu dan no jinke drubun da da mi yike nan dan zhuwa gunji zhanan ji zamba dan che ge du da ji ju den do. In the language of the gods, Nagas and Yakshas, in the language of demons and humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. Okay, so what you saw on the screen share is the actual prayer of noble conduct that we'll get into later. And that verse is from after the section we're going to recite, but I encourage all of you to read the whole thing and then find it. And you'll see how we can really, with this prayer of noble conduct, mature in very, very efficient ways, because it shows us how to multiply everything and multiply our virtues and multiply, the power of basis in terms of the Buddhas, and multiply everything in terms of, our relation to other sentient beings. So with that being said, welcome, everyone here that I've now invited, saying in the language of every being, in the universe, I'm proclaiming this teaching in, all of those languages, and hoping that, every being who still has afflictive obstructions or obstructions to omniscience can benefit in some way by this. And this then, lines, my motivation up with every sentient being, because we know there are kind of two divisions: sentient beings, and then Buddhas. So it aligns me with all of those sentient beings that I need to align with in order to experience perfect bliss, because in order to experience perfect bliss, I have to have aligned with all beings. And by then, learning to meditate on the power of basis of, innumerable, objects of, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, innumerable holy beings, enlightened beings, then that also makes each one of those moments of virtues just so much more impactful. So I just want to say now, that I, from my side as a teacher, have done this. Please now you, from the side, your side as students, invite all sentient beings here to be your guest. All the beings of the hell, hungry ghost, animal, human demigods and gods. Imagine that you invite all of them here, all beings, whatever beings that they may be. And we recognize that any being that still has even the smallest amount of obstructions to omniscience, is a being who hasn't realized his or her potential or realized the potential for all sentient beings and isn't the most reliable guide in the universe. So imagine now that you're inviting all beings here to be your guests, to lead them in prayer, so that they may be able to go further on their path, so that they may be able to hear whatever it is that they need to hear. And you can be confident that you're leading them here to listen to something that's effective, because we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, which shows the beings of three capacities. And we understand that Lord Atisha said, understand that there are beings of three capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly to identify their individual characteristics. And every pathway that every sentient being will need and needs is contained within the teachings for beings of three capacities that is elucidated in great detail in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment that we looked at for so many years with Khenser Geshe Wandak. And now we're looking at once again in terms of, actually how we're meditating on these individual steps and so forth. That Rinpoche was so kind to us to impart all of these technical teachings on us and show us how to meditate. And now some of us have been able to apply these teachings. And here I feel so good to be able to give this advice to you. And it's passed down from an unbroken, perfect lineage that you are part of, and that you are inviting all sentient beings to be part of. And we know that this lineage consists of these incredible holy beings going all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni. And we're so blessed to be able to connect with Buddha Shakyamuni, who shows us how to get rid of all of our suffering, how to be able to achieve bliss, become the most reliable guides in the universe with perfect wisdom, perfect love, perfect compassion, perfect power, and perfect skillful means. So we're so fortunate to be able to share these steps with all sentient beings, and we can be confident these are the steps that all sentient beings need to become no longer sentient beings and become Buddhas. And Buddhas are the only beings in the universe who have gotten rid of the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience, and therefore can lead all sentient beings reliably to the state that they've achieved. And all sentient beings will be led reliably by that Buddha spontaneously because of the Bodhisattva path, and because of, before the Bodhisattva path, engaging in things just like we're engaging in right now, trying to ripen our minds, trying to make our minds more in line with the realizations of renunciation, the realization of bodhicitta, the realization of the correct view of emptiness, the realization of that calm mind of shamatha that we'll combine with the wisdom that we get from special insight through our analytical meditation, that will allow us to truly penetrate the nature of reality and see it directly. And we're so fortunate. Every sentient being now has been brought here, and that we can now experience pure virtue because we're doing it, and we're doing it with all sentient beings here. So imagine now we've brought all sentient beings here as our guests. And now we're going to imagine that we're just quickly doing a practice together, just kind of looking at what we could do in our own home. What are some things that Lama Tsongkhapa gave as advice? And we find these 6 preparations. We've gone over a few times before, but I think it's just so important to just kind of revitalize our mind and do these things in our own daily practice, so that it reinforces exactly how to practice, sets our practice up properly, and we get the most out of each moment of our practice. So the first preparation is cleaning the room. So you're imagining now, unless you would like to get up and clean the room, that's fine too. But imagine when you're cleaning the room, that you're not only cleaning the room, all sentient beings are cleaning the room along with you. All sentient beings are creating this very clean environment because you're inviting holy beings. You're going to be inviting all of the enlightened beings over, and you would clean your home. If you were inviting normal people over your house, now you're inviting the most important beings in the universe to be your guests, to be here with you. So you imagine that you and all sentient beings are cleaning this room And then, once you're satisfied with this cleaning, and you can look at the story of Chittapantaka, who cleaned all the way to being able to realize arhatship from a place where he wasn't able to memorize one line. So I encourage you to look into these incredible stories about the power of cleaning, and that the Buddha actually prescribed this alongside of meditation. So now we're, doing this cleaning of the room, and we're imagining sentient beings are cleaning the room, and we can do it in the way Chittapantaka did, and imagine abandoning, this dirt, getting away with dirt. Here, dirt is symbolic of my afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. May I remove all of these negativities. May all sentient beings remove all of these activities. Here, dirt is attachment, hatred, and ignorance. May I remove these negativities. May this room, my mind, be cleansed of these negativities. And you start to see how the cleansing of the room is cleansing of your mind, and the cleansing of your mind being ready to invite a guest, and the cleansing of the room in order to feel confident that you can invite that guest into a room that's been properly set up. And we can do a lot of different things mentally as well. So I encourage you to play with this step in every way that you can, because this is a very important step that the Buddha prescribed to someone who then in that life was able to achieve, incredible, I believe, arhatship. His name is Arya, though. So Arya being, or arhatship, from a very, very dull place. So you're cleaning this room, and you're using these motivations of connecting with all sentient beings. You're doing it as imagining you're purifying your mind, recognizing your mind is empty of inherent existence, and that because of that emptiness of inherent existence, your mind can mature into whatever it is that it knows and reflects in terms of dependent origination. And if you, make it know the things and make it, reflect and make it experience through dependent origination, omniscience, it can. So we're imagining that we're purifying this mind that's in the nature of clear light and unsullied, so that we can get to that place where there isn't that grasping, and there isn't that, imperfect way of seeing. And the Buddha is able to, comprehend, not only not misapprehend reality, but the Buddha doesn't experience reality incorrectly anymore. And the Buddha is the only being in the universe who can not only, not, misapprehend reality at one time or see conventional truth. The Buddha is able to not misapprehend reality and not see conventional truth as inherently existent while still being able to see conventional truth. The Buddha is the only one in the universe who can simultaneously see the conventional and ultimate truth. And something that one needs to do if one wants to be completely reliable. So you're using these kind of motivations to kind of purify your mind. And now you're inviting all, beings in. So you're arranging images of enlightenment on your altar, images of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, stupas, Buddha images, and so forth. And it's very important that when you're doing this arranging of the images, when we look at Nagarjuna's presentation to the king, the advice to the king, letter to the king, that we find in this section of the Lamrim Chemo that we're in, we see that one of the first things that Nagarjuna gives as far as advice to King Udaybhadra is that you should make sure that you see all images of the Buddha, no matter what the quality is in terms of the maker, whether it's made of clay, whether it's made of gold, whether it's made of whatever material the objects of enlightenment you are putting on your altar are. You should see them as all equal, not that, oh, my gold Buddha should go higher than my clay Buddha. This is wrong view. This is a misunderstanding. This is not, the understanding of what the Buddha represents. This is, maybe like an understanding that the worldly view would have, who would buy such a thing, at fill in the blank store. They sell Buddhas everywhere, and put it somewhere as decoration. This isn't what we're trying to do. This is the being this is a representation of the Dharmakaya that our mind will, possess. We will have this pure mind, this, natural Dharmakaya and wisdom Dharmakaya. We will possess this omniscience that then, that has this omniscience and this caring for others that then emanates, enjoyment bodies and emanation bodies to help sentient beings. So this is no matter what the image is made of on our altar, we have to understand that that's what it represents. It's not about, and we adorn it. We try to make it, as beautiful as possible, and artisans do, and we buy them to look as beautiful as possible just because of our reverence for that which all of them represent. But we shouldn't see a distinction because of some quality of artisanship in terms of the quality of the Buddha itself. Somebody came to, I think, Atisha and said, how is this, I think it was Manjushri. Anyway, this image of an enlightened being. And I think that Lord Atisha said, well, there is no image of an enlightened being that's bad, but the artist wasn't so great. So the actual image is always the enlightened being. So it says in the letter to a friend, wise men and women venerate figures of the Sugatas made from wood and such, whatever they may be. Just so, though this poetry of mine be poor, scorn it not, for it is based upon the sayings of the holy Dharma. So we see this, this is the holy being, no matter what it's made of. So this is just something that's important that I noticed when I was, because the 6 sufferings within this section of the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment are not taken from, or just the quotes are from Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. So I've just been perusing it. And letter to a friend has the 2 divisions that I think that we talked about, the recommendation to heed, and it's these first 3 verses. I should read them all now that we're doing this. The recommendation to heed, it's only 3 verses. Why would we not? Virtuous one, worthy by nature of the good, I've composed these noble rhymes to instill aspiration for merit derived from Sugata's teachings in a short piece, which you should heed. Wise men and women venerate figures of the Sugatas made from wood and such, whatever they may be. Just so, though this poetry of mine be poor, scorn it not, for it is based upon the teachings of the holy Dharma. And I'm going to read Randhawa's commentary here. Why not? Whether beautiful or not, figures of the Sugatas made from wood and such, which words refer to stone, clay, and so forth, are venerated by the wise based on the qualities of what they represent, regardless of the value of the material or artistry. Similarly, this poetry of mine merits the praise of wise men and women who confide not in the letter, but in the meaning of a statement. Though they may be poor in style, the verses are based upon the sayings of supreme beatitude. Thus do not scorn it. In fact, you should give heed. So here, then that's Randhawa's just point on what I was making. And then the 3rd verse says, though you may have even comprehended all the exquisite speech of the great Muni, doesn't that which is made of chalk plaster become still whiter in the winter moon's light? Okay, so we'll read this. I have to. He is called Muni for having protected the 3 gateways from non-virtuous acts. The Buddha is great in that he has eliminated all traces of the mental afflictions and the causes for rebirth. So all traces, the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. The Lord Buddha's speech is termed exquisite because it is spoken with excellence. Though you, O king, may have even comprehended it all by means of listening, contemplating, and meditation, still these verses should also be heard, since they will serve to make what you have already learned even more clear. Does not, for example, the striking of the winter moon's light upon a white stuccoed mansion make it seem whiter still, despite that being its natural color? Okay, so this is something that we should think about in terms of this first preparation among the 6, that when we're arranging images, we shouldn't be arranging images in terms of this one goes higher because this one costs $100 and this one goes, way over here because this one, you get it, cost $1. There shouldn't be this distinction in your mind. It should be images of enlightenment. You should be setting an altar up in terms of thinking that everything equally has value in terms of what it represents. Okay, so you arrange these images of enlightenment, and now the second preparation. So you're imagining you're doing this with all sentient beings. You're arranging these images, all sentient beings. You're getting virtue in relation to, you're getting infinite virtue. If you could, we can do more and more in conditions like my own. I can't connect to every single being. I can pretend and imagine, but if I keep practicing, I know I'll be able to actually do so to the point where it's everyone in the universe that needs help, like me now. So that's what's amazing. It's this kind of pay it back process. Like the Buddha was like me now and needed help. And then the Buddha becomes Buddha and wakes up and then becomes the helper so that then I can become a Buddha and help someone like me now. It's just this kind of pay it back process that makes perfect sense. And why would you not, if you realized, this gift and you practice this thing that forced you to spontaneously help everyone in terms of cause and effect? When you study these things, it just makes sense in terms of how it would work if it could work. So I encourage you all to study enough to see how it could work, and it does work, and so forth. Cut and rub it, investigate it, and make it your knowledge. One thing I don't want to forget is that, if someone in the world had dug through the earth and found some new gem, I don't know. That's even possible. I'm not a scientist. They found this new gem that people hadn't seen before. You wouldn't say that it was theirs. You wouldn't say they made it. You'd say they discovered it. And that's what the Buddha did. Discovered the nature of reality. It's not something that only the Buddha goes out now and does. The Buddha says, oh, these were the steps that I took. This is where I dug to discover this. I dug in my mind and dug and dug and dug and practiced the liberating and ripening paths, and I became a Buddha. It wasn't something that was different than what the reality is. It's just the Buddha discovered a reality that no one else had discovered in that world in terms of what the literature said or was talking about at that time. There were Buddhas before Buddha Shakyamuni. Buddha Shakyamuni is the fourth in a line of 1,000. And there were Buddhas before this 1,000 clump. So we have to understand that there's just a discovery by a being being made about the nature of reality. And throughout time, there's been ones like us that do it, and then they come and tell us how to do it. It's really interesting when you see how we can mature in the reality of our maturation, and how this is just something that is here for us to discover. It's not something that's, so obscured to the point that it's not discoverable. It's not a dream. It's not a pipe dream, because the Buddha's pointing exactly where to dig. This is where I dug. And every time you dig here, it's not like just one jewel. In this story, it kind of has to change a little. Every time you dig here, if you dig exactly the way I dug, you're going to pull this gem up. If you do exactly what I did, you are going to wake up and be omniscient and be the most reliable guide in the universe. So, wow, when we think of it in these terms, it's just so, it gives us hope. It gives us strength. It gives us like, oh, wait a second. I don't have to it's not like this creator God, Buddha, creator of Buddhism. No, the Buddha just discovered truth and then came and talked about it. His name was Buddha Shakyamuni. He was from the Shakyamuni clan, the Shakya clan, and Buddha just means woken up. So it was a guy who woke up. We call him this in this case. And there's women who did that. It's just not men. And we just have to understand that we just we're sleeping. And the Buddha tells us exactly how to wake up. And it's that digging process, the liberating and ripening path. So These are the kind of holy beings we've just set up on our altar, a being who can tell us how to discover Buddhahood. Wow. And there aren't too many beings in our lives or things we put in our home that represent that, the end of our suffering and our, the beginning of and the interminable bliss, like a bliss that won't end, the beginning of this bliss that won't end. These objects, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the Buddha, the enlightened being, the Dharma, the cessation of suffering, and the Arya paths, and the Sangha, those Arya beings, those things we put on our altar that represent that which will allow us to never suffer again and have bliss forever. That's not a vase or a flower or a picture of Monet, whatever. I don't know anything about art, so I was going to try and say something fancy, but I have limitations. So anyway, so now, bearing in mind how awesome this stuff, these beings on your altar, this stuff, what this stuff represents, and the beings that you now are knowing on your altar, you're supposed to see every image of the Buddha as the Buddha, him or herself. So you're seeing this now. You've been cleaned the place up because you're like, come on over. And now you're seeing, oh my gosh, the most incredible beings in the universe are here. Let me make offerings. So now the second preparation is you make offerings that you've obtained honestly, and you do it, in any way that you can, in whatever means that you have. It's really the motivation that's most important. You can read a lot of different, stories in the sutras and so forth about, huge, vast offerings that were made by benefactors, and then somebody just really had a better motivation, rejoiced in the hallway, and got more merit because the motivation was bad. So we really, we want to have the correct motivation as we're going through all of this. We're always thinking of refuge and bodhicitta, even though it's not till we get to the fourth, what is it, the third preparation, where we start to talk about the actual going for refuge and so forth, the third preparation, but we're having this motivation the whole time when we're doing it, and we're going to get into more detail about what we then would do in the third preparation. So now we're arranging images of enlightenment beautifully, making it look lovely, imagining how you would put it out for the most holy beings in the world, and doing actual material offerings and doing imagined offerings and so forth. So now you've got, all of the images of enlightenment there. You've got a clean space, the images of enlightenment there. You've got the offerings that are set out. And now it says that you sit down on your cushion and get into the 7-point Vairocana posture. Excuse me. Get into the 7-point Vairocana posture. And then, from there, start to see how your mind is behaving. So now imagine that you and all sentient beings are now in the 7-point Vairocana posture, or get into the 7-point Vairocana posture, and check to kind of see, the 7-point Vairocana posture allows for the best basis for our mind to flow, our blood to flow properly. Our physical body doesn't become kind of a hindrance, because we're, when we do this over and over again, our physical body can then sit for long periods of time, because this posture's kind of been tried and tested by the great meditators. And they say, hey, if you can kind of get used to doing this, this is very conducive to sitting long periods of time. Then your body serves as a support for your mind in a lot of different subtle ways as well, but that's not important to talk about right now. So you get into the 7-point Vairocana posture, and you can study what that is. We're not going to talk about what that is. So imagining that you and all sentient beings are getting into the 7-point Vairocana posture, and you're, making sure, checking your mind. It can be put in either order. I like to just check your mind, see, where you're at that moment. Is it clear? Is it something that's just all over the place and needs to kind of be addressed at that moment? Is it busy? Is it just sleepy? And there's antidotes that you can apply to that, just so that you can then, your next part is where you're doing refuge and bodhicitta, and kind of, setting it up in your mind. If you're doing this according to, step by step by step. In this. So then you're going for refuge and you're generating bodhicitta. So the way that you would do this, if you're doing it in a practice, so we're just going to imagine that we and all sentient beings are doing this together. You're sat down. Okay, we're assuming our minds are decent enough, right? We're not looking for us, like, we're not jumping into shamatha. We're just practicing. So our minds are decent enough to get going. So we start to think about the excellent qualities of the Buddha, the excellent qualities of the Dharma, the excellent qualities of the Sangha, excellent qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities, the 8 excellent qualities of the Dharma, 8 excellent qualities of the Sangha. We really, really start to think of those excellent qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, thinking about the fact that, we can be led to complete enlightenment. We can be led, to a place where the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience are completely freed. And then we start to generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment, because we're trying to saturate our practice. Even though we've already invited all sentient beings here as part of this practice, we're reinforcing it. We're reinforcing it, if we have time, with the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or equalizing and exchanging self with others, or a combination of both. So we're really using analytical meditation at this point to go through and think of the excellent qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and think about the excellent qualities of bodhicitta, and really try to have a contrived form of refuge and bodhicitta generated in your mind, and then you can recite the refuge prayer. And when you recite the refuge prayer, in this case, in the refuge prayer before the teaching, we say the merit I create by listening to the Dharma or teaching the Dharma. Here it's going to say by practicing giving in the other perfections. So this is the general refuge prayer, sometimes attributed to Lord Atisha, and it's called the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, because it says, within it, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we see that before we do the prayer, if we can really think about the meaning and taste it, then when we say the prayer, it's something that can be riveting. It isn't just something that's blah, 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 which you can do too, which will leave imprints, and it's wonderful. But if you can really think about the meaning, the excellent qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and generate a contrived form of bodhicitta, and then say, I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings, or may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. We're in like 3 classes right now, and there's 3 different versions of it. So I might have just done a mashup. I'm not sure, but I think you get the point, by Sanjay Chodan, Zoji Jonan La, Janju Badu Dani, Jazuchi, Dagi Jinso, Jipe, Sonanji, Drola, Bencha, Sanjay Drubar Sho in Tibetan. So you would say this, and this is refuge in bodhicitta, because it's saying, I go for refuge until I am enlightened. And what kind of enlightenment? The enlightenment of a Buddha. So you would then generate this. So you have your mind is kind of good, and you would then, generate this. You would say the refuge prayer, and so forth. So then you've got your motivation really, really set, and you've gone for refuge. So what we would normally do in our practice now is we're in the 7-point Vairocana posture. And let's just further check just a minute. Let's do the breathing in and out and the counting of the breath, just focusing our mind on the breathing in and out and the counting of the breath while we're in the 7-point Vairocana posture, while also imagining in the front generation form that incredible Buddha we just talked about, with those incredible qualities that we just talked about, at about an arm length away, thumb height, about, I don't know, eye height, arm length away, thumb size, that's 1.5 inches or so. That's what I was grappling at. Beautiful and radiant, but in a static form. You're trying to fix your mind on something, focus solely on something. So you're focusing solely on the breathing in and out and the counting, and the front generation form of the Buddha. And if you see any kind of distraction, anything going on that shouldn't be in terms of sleepiness, darkness going on, or scattering, busyness, excitement, etc. going on. The spy of introspection in your mind, we've talked about, should catch it, say, oh, I don't mean like say, oh, set an alarm off for mindfulness that grabs the object back and brings it to the forefront. So you don't want to be scattered or sleepy. You want to be completely calm mind and brilliant, luminous, illuminated. Okay, so, mindfulness will bring back the breathing in and out, counting, and then Buddha Shakyamuni. So we'll start there. And just to get our minds into even a better state. So we've just gone for refuge, generated bodhicitta, and so forth formally. And now we're focusing on Buddha Shakyamuni. Now imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni becomes animated and experiences bliss from seeing you here, seeing all beings here, engaging in what he came to this world to show us how to do, get rid of the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. And imagine that bliss causes an eruption. And Buddha Shakyamuni has been containing the entire merit field. And this becomes the fourth preparation, where we're imagining the merit field. So imagining all of the enlightened beings in the space in front of you that Buddha Shakyamuni has been containing. Buddha Shakyamuni is very animated, imagining His Holiest the Dalai Lama on a very secure throne held by snow lions, a Vajra throne. His Holiness the Dalai Lama looking into your eyes with all of the love and compassion he looks into the eyes of all sentient beings with, imagining Khenser Geshe Wandak, my root teacher, many of your root teachers, many of yours root teacher, something like this, imagining him smiling and radiant, chuckling the way that he did, that made us all feel so comfortable to study advanced material. Because he said, slowly, you can understand this, and you will, and gave us the confidence to keep going. And imagine how pleased he'd be that we've kept going. Khenser Geshe Wandak looking into our eyes. Geshe Lobsang Gompo, Demolocha Rinpoche, the Khenser Lobsang Gyatso, imagining Geshe Dorje Damdu and Umzala Geshe Aga, Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin, Jeffrey Hopkins, Chowder Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all these holy beings, imagining any being you considered an enlightened being in the space in front of you. Now imagining the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Basu Bandhu and Dignaga and Dharma Kirti and Vimukta Sena and Hari Bhadra and Guna Prabha and Shakya Prabha and Lama Salimpa and Atisha. Imagining these holy beings now assembling in the space in front of you, the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Arya Deva and Chandrakirti and Shanti Deva and Baba Vega and Chandrashita and Kamalashila, Lama Salimpa and Lord Atisha. Imagining these holy beings are there, all there. Imagining the beings of the lineage of blessings passed down, Vajradhara, Saraha, Matripa, Tilopa, Naropa, Lotsawa, Marpa, Milarepa, Gampo, all these holy beings are assembling in the space in front of you, imagining Atisha is passing down the Lamrim lineage, the holy Lamrim lineage that we're studying right now. Atisha is passing it down to the lay Lama Drontompa, imagining the three old Kadampa lineages, the holy beings of the Nyingma, Padmasambhava, Sakya, Kunga Nyingpo, and Sakya Pandita, the Kaju lineage, the Karmapas, imagining the Galupa lineage, imagining Lama Tsongkhapa and Kirtip J and Joseph J, Panchen Sanandrapa, Basuchuji Jetson, Jayan Sheba, Janja Rupi George, Gonju Jimpi Wampo, the seventh Dalai Lama, imagining all of these holy beings, Jetsomba, Pubajo, all of these holy beings in the space in front of you. We have such a connection to them. All of the teachings that we've heard, we've relied upon all of these beings, whether we know it or not. We're so fortunate to have these teachings in our world, imagining the beings of the highest Yoga Tantra, performance tantra and action tantra, where we learn how to transform independence upon the basis of the perfection vehicle, these negative desires, into path in 4 different levels. And Tantrayana will not be taught in this world that many times, and we're so fortunate that Buddha Shakyamuni is one among the few that teaches Tantrayana, and we're exposed to these teachings. And if we practice the path shared in common and become a vessel that is worthy, we can enter with perfect ease, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, in the source of all my good, the way of the diamond. Highest. Imagining the beings, the 35 Buddhas, imagining all the protector deities, small scope protectors, medium, small, great scope protectors, all of those holy beings, Paul and Lamo, all these beings we're so connected to, imagining them in the space in front of us. The Dharma protectors protect us, Vaishravana and Kalaputra and Dharma Raja and Mahakala, Paul and Lamo, they all protect us because we're studying the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. And these beings have vowed to protect those who study it and protect the teachings. Feel just so protected and powerful because we have these beings in our corner and we're part of this incredible spiritual family. So now this is the 4th preparation, imagining that you, all sentient beings, are seeing these enlightened beings in the space in front of them. You and all sentient beings are having this experience. You've brought them here. You're feeling this joy that you're doing something just so altruistic right now. You've taken on yourself the task of freeing them all and imagining you can do it even before you can. It's such courage. Now with the 5th preparation, we're going to make a 7-limb prayer. And we're going to do it from the prayer of noble conduct so that we learn how to multiply all of the virtues and so forth. And we can do the merit multiplying mantra. We could have done that at the very beginning. Om Sambara Sambara Bhamanasara Mahazoa Hom, Om Mara Mara Bhamanagara Mahazoa Hom. If you do that, sometimes 3, sometimes it's said 7 times, it multiplies all of your virtues by 100,000. Sometimes it says more times. And then also when you make the offerings, you can offer the prayer of offerings, which is Om Namo Bhagavate Benzasara Pramana Tatakata Yarati Samasamadai Om Mahavira Benza Mabo Benza Mabo de Manda Basakamanda Benza Savakama Avarana Vishudana Benza Soha. So these are just some offering mantras that you can do. You find within the sutra tradition. So mantras aren't just found in Tantra. And we see the Heart Sutra mantra is a mantra that's found in Sutra that's not a tantric mantra. So there's other mantras like that, the essence of dependent origination mantra, tons of mantras found in the Sutra tradition. And it also can be interpreted in a higher tradition as well. There's no reason to get into any of those details right now. So now we'll make a 7-limb prayer according to the prayer of noble conduct. And we see with the 7 limbs, we have limbs of accumulation, limbs of purification, and limbs of increase. And we're not going to give a teaching on that right now because I want to keep things moving and get into the Lamrim Chemo to where we actually are. But I feel like practice is so important and it's all kind of incorporating into this. And I really made it, I want this to be what I'm helping if you need help or, just reminding of you with. Because I am not a Geshe Larampa, but luckily I spent, couple decades with one of the greatest, and he really imparted some special things on myself and us. So now we're imagining all of these, the merit field, and again, it's going to tell us in this prayer how to do it. Like, and as many as atoms there are. Now now you just imagine these huge beings. Well, now you're shrinking them down to this, this whole merit field sitting on atoms, the whole merit field. Imagine if you could do that. Imagine this whole merit field I just said, blah, 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 all that, and then shrunk it to the size of an atom and then multiplied it, the whole universe with it, and then made a 7-limb prayer to that power of basis. Wow. That's just infinite virtue, power that's going on. It makes sense, right? You're doing it in such a connected way. It's just increasing it because the basis is so, when we say a Buddha is a really, really heavy basis to get virtue or non-virtue in relation to. Don't steal a Buddha statue. Virtue or non-virtue in relation to. So imagine if you can create virtue in relation to that powerful basis and its innumerable bases. Bases? Right. So just imagine that. So this is what this seven-limb prayer, the prayer of noble conduct, this is what Buddha's telling us how to do. And incredible visualizations that are right in this sutra, where you're doing this, imagining atoms turning into merit fields. So don't underestimate what you find in the sutra tradition. You're imagining merit fields of the size of atoms and numerous, and you're imagining sentient beings and everyone, and there's all of this happening, and you're trying to hold on to this so that you can in every moment get as much virtue as possible. Why? Because that's the fastest way to become the most reliable guide in the universe, who has no suffering and only bliss that perpetuates itself because of dependent origination. But is not outside the realm of karma. Buddha is outside the realm of contaminated karma. But Buddha is, and that's why the Buddha stands outside the wheel of life when you see the painting. But Buddha is not subject to karma. Buddha is subject to karma, which is action. And the Buddha's dependent origination is of bliss to bliss to bliss, because that which gives rise to bliss is the only thing there. That which gives rise to spontaneous love, compassion, and perfect wisdom, etc., is the only thing there. And there's nothing that will stop that cycle for a Buddha, and will stop that cycle for us. And our minds don't just snap into it. They mature and almost like evolve into this thing. And it starts to work better. The mind starts to work better, apprehend things properly first, and then things appear properly when you're a Buddha. But the apprehension begins along this path. The doubt of the really secure doubt around the apprehension. Apprehending things as, oh, this thing I'm seeing appears as inherently existent, but I don't believe it. The Buddha doesn't even appear that way anymore so those beings who don't have that problem anymore of it appearing to have inherent existence, and they don't apprehend it to, so they don't have to see it as wrong and then know it's wrong. The Buddha just, sees it as right. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty neat. I guess I reading more and more about it. It sounds neat. It sounds like the superheroes that I wished I could be as a little kid, with kind of like underoos on, flying through the house. And then I'm being told now that you can actually do this, but it's not quite that easy. So it's pretty neat as you start to study this more and more and more, and you see how some things that seemed so unreal but were neat to think about being real could be real, but you would have to be only doing it for others. Only that, not because you wanted to fly around. That's the trick. And my self-cherishing attitude just wants a ride, So, seven-limb prayer. Back to screen share, please. I promise I'll read it now. So this is from the King of Aspiration Prayers, Samantabhadra's aspiration to good actions, the Sanchimolan, from the Ganda Vyuha chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra, in the language of India, Arya Bhadracharya Brahma Dana Raja, in the language of Tibet, Papa Zampo Jupi Mulanji Jelpo, in the language of in the English language, the King of Aspiration Prayers, Samantabhadra's aspiration to good actions. Translator's homage to Manjushri, the youthful. So Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom, in sutras, Bodhisattva, So we'll just leave it at that. But so the Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri, prostration to all the Buddhas, the lions of the human race in all the directions of the universe through vast, present, past, present, and future. To every single one of you, I bow in homage. Devotion fills my body, speech, and mind through the power of the prayer, aspiring to good action. All the victorious ones appear vivid here before my mind, and I multiply my body as many times as atoms in the universe, each one bowing in prostration to all the Buddhas. So here you're imagining not only the multiplication of the merit field, but also the multiplication of your bodies, all sentient beings' bodies. I know it gets very crowded, but you're trying to imagine this. You're doing it as, and from your side, the bodhicitta field side, your side as the practitioner, you're trying to imagine as many bodies as there are these innumerable merit fields. Does that make sense? So you've just imagined countless, hard to count number of merit fields. So you need a hard to count number of bodies if you're going to make prostrations of your body, speech, and mind and make offerings. You're going to need a bunch of yous to go make them to them. Okay, so this is why. So I'm sorry to stop the prayer there, but it's just, I think this is a really important part to understand why you're multiplying both sides, because you have multiple, a multitude of merit fields. So you need a multitude of yous relating to them. And this is the power. This is what your mind can do and how you can quickly get to Buddhahood and how this transfers right into Tantrayana. And you need this so badly if you want to practice Tantrayana. So this is a little just like hey, you should probably do this. In every atom preside as many Buddhas as there are atoms, and around them all their bodhisattva heirs. And so I imagine them filling completely the entire space of reality, saluting them with an endless ocean of praise, with the sounds of an ocean of different melodies. I sing the Buddha's noble qualities and praise all those who have gone to bliss. So now you have praise, you have prostration, body, speech, and mind. So here you're imagining that your voice is praising the Buddhas, is multiplying. Not only bodies, because you can, do a mental offering, mental prostration, physical prostration, verbal prostration. So here you're imagining infinite voices making praises to all the enlightened beings. So go back, I think. Go back just a little bit. Okay, keep going. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to, the headers in this particular one we're reading aren't the correct headers. So I just keep going. No, the other way, please. Okay, slowly. Okay, no, go back to every Buddha I offer. Just give me a little bit of the, okay, thank you so much. Okay, so now we begin the offering section. So we did prostration with our body, speech, and mind, and we imagine innumerable bodies, innumerable speeches, and innumerable minds thinking of the excellent qualities, praising the excellent qualities. We don't have to say it out loud or make a physical thing happen. We can do this with our mind. So we're imagining, multiple minds. We can imagine our mind like, multiple minds. Just stay there. Imagining our multiple minds that are experiencing this. So now we make offerings to every Buddha. So now you and all sentient beings are making offerings. Now you're multiplying the offerings, because you have to multiply the offerings, because the objects of your offering are, so many. So to every Buddha, I make offerings of the loveliest flowers and beautiful garlands, of music and perfumed ointments, the best of parasols, the brightest lamps and finest incense. To every Buddha, I make offerings, exquisite garments, and the most fragrant scents, powdered incense, heaped as high as Mount Meru, arranged in symmetry. Then the vast and unsurpassable offerings, inspired by my devotion to all the Buddhas, moved by the power of my faith and good actions, I prostrate and offer to all the victorious ones. And then here, sometimes you'll see a mandala offering inserted. And the 6 preparations, the mandala offerings at the 6th preparation. So we're just going to follow in that order. And then here is where in these offerings, you would be making various mudras. If you know the hand mudras, and you know how to do the flower mudras and so forth, that you find them all contained in here. You can enhance this practice by doing physical virtues while you're mentally and reciting it. So you see how you can, your physical virtue by doing a mudra, verbally you're creating virtue by reciting this, and mentally you're thinking about doing all of this. So you can really, really enhance your practice by enhancing your practice. So, but you have to start somewhere. And this is, you have to start somewhere. So now confession, imagining you're acknowledging your downfalls. Whatever negative acts I have committed while driven by desire, hatred, and ignorance with my body, speech, my mind, my body, my speech, and also my mind, before you I confess and purify each and every one. Now we rejoice. And it's, Lama Tsongkhapa says this is the easiest way to get huge amounts of virtue, because when you rejoice in the virtue, you get a percentage of the virtue of some, if you rejoice in someone else doing something good, it somehow links your mind in such a big way to a result that you get a percentage of that virtue, because it gives rise to this kind of large result because of you linking with such a high aspiration. So if you're rejoicing in Lama Tsongkhapa's understanding of emptiness, then, it's really creating causes for you to be able to realize emptiness, and not realize Lama Tsongkhapa's emptiness, realize emptiness, the same thing Buddha discovered, Lama Tsongkhapa discovered. It's not a secret thing. It's just the truth of reality. So this rejoicing allows you to connect to the realizations that beings have. They can't transfer their realizations to you, but your mind's saying, I want to be like that. And when you say, I want to be like something that's just so special, the power of basis causes it to enhance it in terms of magnification. And there's other ways to explain it that are more detailed, but let's leave it there. With a heart full of delight, I rejoice in all the merits of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Pratyeka Buddhas, those in training, and the Arhats beyond training, and every living being throughout the entire universe, begging or imploring the Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma. You who are like beacons of light shining through the worlds, who pass through the stages of enlightenment to attain Buddhahood, freedom from all attachment, I exhort you, all you protectors, turn the unsurpassable wheel of Dharma. Now requesting the Buddhas not to enter nirvana. Now you're imagining, again, all sentient beings, imagining innumerable beings, innumerable merit fields in the space in front of you, and you're requesting them all not to enter nirvana, asking them to abide, asking our teachers to abide. We know that the Buddhas spontaneously emanate, asking them not to withdraw these emanations. And this is what keeps the condition from our side to have them in our lives. Joining my palms together, I pray to you who intend to pass into nirvana, remain for eons, as many as atoms in the world, and bring well-being and happiness to all living beings. So now we're connecting in all our future lives to the Buddhas, and we're also connecting to this idea of bringing well-being to all sentient beings. So we're connecting to who we will be, a being who can bring well-being and happiness to all sentient beings. Who are we making this offering to? Who are we, making these requests and so forth to? A being who can bring, happiness and freedom from suffering to all sentient beings. Dedication. What a little virtue I have gathered through my homage, through offering, confession, rejoicing, through exhortation and prayer, all of it, I dedicate to the enlightenment of all beings. Okay, so now we've made the 7-limb prayer. So this is the 5th of the 6 preparations. And then 6th preparation is you make a mandala offering and further supplications. So here the mandala offering is made, and it's made to the merit field in terms of, it's similar to Lama Tsongkhapa's bless me to perceive, bless me, bless me, bless me. It's a mandala offering where it's an offering to the merit field with this idea of supplication invested within it. And then you make further supplications to the merit field in this step, and you can do it in relation to whatever you're trying to succeed in. because when we look at Lama Tsongkhapa's text, the next thing that happens is now sit down and tell your mind what to do. So now before you're sitting down and telling your mind what to do, you're already sitting down. I get it, but you know what I mean? Mind, sit down. Now I'm going to tell you what to do. I should have said, I'm going to tell you what to do. Before you do that, you say, you're making a mandala offering. And in that mandala offering, you say, bless me to be able to fill in the blank, bless me to be able to have my mind tell it what I want it to do what I tell it to do. Bless me to be able to understand the implicit and explicit meaning of the Heart Sutra. Bless me to be able to, have a better understanding of this topic I'm struggling with. And now you're requesting in a way. When you're saying blessing, they're not like Shazam. Now they're going to figure out a way, the merit field can, based on the information you provided, help you to clear up misconceptions somehow. Intervene, give a teaching, not to try to get mystical and weird, but now you're open to an intervention to help. And if a being has utmost love and compassion and spontaneously is a helper, then now we've created an invitation to that has to be there as a condition in order for them to connect with us. We have to have the karma for a Buddha to spontaneously come to us to help. The Buddhists can't wash away. The Buddhists can't just come fix us. That's what's so troubling about this. And, and that's what is so troubling even for the bodhisattvas all the way up, that they say, can't just fix this. And then the realization is all the Buddha can do is teach the truth. Self-cherishing attitude, problem. Self-grasping ignorance, problem. Fix those things at the gross and subtle level and at the level of like latent predispositions, imprints of them, and you've got no more problems. So here we'll make a mandala offering. And this mandala offering is this mandala offering with supplication. When we do the mandala offering before the teaching, which we'll probably still do if there's time, when we do that, that's a mandala offering is a request for teaching. And at the end, it's a thank you for teaching. Here it's a mandala offering as a supplication in a way, a blessing, an offering to the merit field, but a further supplication that's embedded within this, this offering that is, I've come to the table with this most beautiful, perfect universe, and please help me with A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And then you start your meditation. Okay. So now we'll make a mandala offering, and it's just the first part of it. There's probably longer forms that go with this part, but the one is just the fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. And then we would then, before any idam guru ratna mandala, before we send forth this jeweled mandala, we then make further supplications. So this is the 6th preparation. We have the mandala offering, and now we're making further supplications. May I be able to understand what we're doing next, which is read the Heart Sutra and understand the implicit and explicit meaning of the Heart Sutra. Understand that the Heart Sutra means the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena does not mean that phenomena doesn't exist. The Heart Sutra implicitly means that all the 5 paths are what we do to achieve Buddhahood, the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. So those 5 paths are found implicitly within the Heart Sutra, and explicitly, if I said that incorrectly before, I apologize, it teaches about the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena, that things exist, but they don't inherently exist. They exist by subjective designation, by a thought consciousness on a basis of designation that has no ness from its own side or character from its own side. So we see things normally as the object, having existence right within it. Objective existence, a better way to translate it is the object having existence, the object existing right in it. It on top of it isn't strong enough. The object existing right in it. We say that chair, that name, chair, exists right in the thing I'm looking at over there. And it's just, Prasangika says, there's just a basis of designation that doesn't have that we think it does. It's merely subjective thought designation that makes it into a chair, and there's no chairness there from its own side. There's no character of chair. There's no chair existing within the object I'm looking at. There's no chair existing in it. It doesn't have a character of chair, intrinsic existence of chair, inherent existence of chair. This is so profound. And if we can understand this, it can end everything that is just terrible. It's so profound. So we make these further supplications that I'll be able to understand these things, be able to understand the 6 sufferings, 8 sufferings, 6 sufferings, 3 sufferings, so I could actually get renunciation. So I could finally renounce self-grasping ignorance at the truth of origin. So profound. So we make these further supplications. And then we would, at the end of the further supplications, whatever they may be, say, I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. So then we would there and then go on with our practice. So here now we'll read the Heart Sutra. Again, meditating on the explicit meaning of the lack inherent existence of all phenomena and the implicit meaning of the 5 paths, 5 Mahayana paths, the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. Teata Om Gate, path of accumulation, Gate, path of preparation, Paragate, path of seeing, Parasamgate, path of meditation, Bodhisoha, path of no more learning. We all will achieve the state of no more learning, Buddhahood, in reliance upon these paths, in reliance upon understanding these paths in terms of the ripening paths and understanding the lack of inherent existence of these paths and of all phenomena and of the 3 spheres of action, agent, and object. And that liberating path combined with the ripening paths found within these 5 paths, both found within these 5 paths of method and wisdom, will allow us to become Buddhas. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way, he saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity and no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu of dharmas, no mind, consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha. 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 Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. I prostrate to the gatherings of the Dakinis and the 3 chakras who abide in the holy yoga of using space by your powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation. Look after practitioners like a mother looks after her child. Aga Samara Dajandara Samara Be. This is the lion face deity's mantra, by the way. That was Te ata on gate gate paragate parasangate buddhizo. By the truth of the existence of the three jewels, may all inner and outer hindrances and adversities be overcome. May they become non-existent. May they be pacified. May they be completely pacified. May all negative forces opposed to the Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from all adverse conditions to the Dharma, and may we obtain all circumstances conducive to the Dharma. May there be auspicious happiness and well-being right here now. Well-being here right now. Papa gonjo zonji gaye deme doji je lobo doji mebo doji shewa doji dragi baje medo beje danje je dingori zo agere no jaje je wa da medo ne beje dande wa da tumba donje bonzon jonjo ji daji de janden da de le sho. Now, once again, we'll make a mandala offering, offering a perfect universe, perfectly happy beings in it. Now, this is a request for teaching. So there's specific times you can make mandala offerings for different things. And you could have also inserted it in the seven limb prayer as a grand offering and done the long mandala offering within the offering section. So you could keep doing them, supplicate offerings in the seven limb prayer, and then supplicating mandala offerings, and then now a request for teaching mandala offerings. So it's used, and then a thank you for teaching mandala offerings. So it's used for a lot of different reasons. And I don't think a lot of this is explained enough. So I think people just throw their hands up and make the thing, throw it up. And I know there's like 4 continents and there's like a mountain in the middle, and we're good. Throw some goodness in there, make it really pretty, and put people that are happy in there. So this is you're doing it here as a request for teaching. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land, and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. And again, you could make this at any point, but this is how we're doing it. So this isn't set in stone. We're just, doing practical things. I was obviously giving the teaching up until now, but I'm just trying to give practical instructions on, exercises that'll help you. So I hope that everyone kind of gets the pith of what I'm trying to do here, is to kind of just convey that this Lam Rim is something that is alive and is an instruction to practice. And every word in Tsongkhapa's book, if it's connected to a word that means something, is going to be somehow practiced by you. And it's amazing. So the prayer of refuge and bodhicitta. So now this one, the one before, we said by my accumulations of practice of giving and so forth, that's the general refuge prayer. Here, this is a refuge prayer before a teaching. So now you want to really focus in on what you're doing in each of the cases. You're trying to, you just did a 7-limb prayer before you took refuge. So you were trying to accumulate by practicing giving in the other perfections, by doing this, by doing what I'm going to do next on my seat. So you were focusing on at kind of what you were going to be doing. Now you're becoming even more specific, and you're saying, through the merit I create by listening to the Dharma. And I'm going to say, by the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, so that we're really specific with our minds, and we're planting it solidly in our minds in a real connected way. Not just, merit I create by doing some stuff I'll do later on. It's the merit I create by what I'm doing right now. And right now, I'm listening to the Dharma. Right then, I was accumulating and purifying and increasing my virtue right before the 7-limb prayer. So now I'm saying, I'm listening to this teaching. I want to really, really become a Buddha quickly. I want this thing that I'm doing right now to make me a Buddha quick. May I be, and this is why it's refuge and bodhicitta, because it's saying I'm going for refuge to become a Buddha quick. So it's a special refuge. It's a Mahayana refuge. It's not a normal refuge. It's not saying I go for refuge to be in an abiding nirvana, so I have a Hinayana realization of nirvana. No, it's saying I'm doing this so I can become Buddha, become the most reliable guide in the universe. And I'm not satisfied with just getting rid of the afflictive obstructions. I want to get rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. So I'll do it just in English today. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I know we're used to this one, but I may change it on you. I'm warning you, because I really like this going. It's going for refuge. I like this more than taking something. You're going towards the protection of a reliable guide. You're going to be under the umbrella when it's raining because you want to be protected from the rain. You're taking something. It doesn't feel the same way as going towards. You couldn't take that. You'd have to go towards the Buddha. You couldn't take it. So anyway, I don't know. I just came up with that right now. So it's not something that's been on my mind a whole lot. So that could change when I stand up, but this is a live teaching. And this is how I think you all who know me by now. I try to participate in Buddhism live in my life. When I'm getting up in the morning, I try my best, right? I fail miserably a lot, but I try my best to wake up and then go to bed with it. All kind of, even if it's contrived, and I'm just like, come on, you remember, come on, kiddo. So this is what we need to be, baby steps, and realize we're all just kids that need to wake up. We're all in the sleep of ignorance, and we see things that are like an illusion as real, real. We have to figure out why they're like an illusion and not an illusion, because if they were an illusion, they wouldn't exist, but they're like an illusion, and it appears differently than it actually exists. And that's what we've got to kind of unwrap. So thank you so much, all of you, for being here today. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. And if you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you don't have bodhicitta. And if there's grasping, you do not have the view. So I'm just going to speak for a few minutes. And I know I don't want to go over more than a couple minutes, but I felt really inspired to share a few practical instructions from oral tradition with you today. And they fit in where they fit in. And for anybody who's new and listening, we are going over Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, as we did for many, many years. And now we've reached the section. We can divide it into different sections on the greatness of the teacher, the greatness of the teaching, and how to listen to and explain the teachings, and then how to lead students in the actual instructions, into 4 categories. And that 4th category goes through the teachings for beings of 3 capacities: small, medium, and great. And we're smack dab in the middle of the teachings for beings of medium. I'd say more at the beginning, not smack dab in the teachings for beings of medium capacity, and how we relate to the first noble truth, the superior truth of suffering. The Buddha stated that if we just look at that and isolate that truth, the Buddha said 3 things about it. The Buddha said that this is the superior truth of suffering. And then the Buddha said suffering needs to be identified. And then the Buddha stated that there is no truth of suffering to identify. It was just talking about there is no inherently existent truth of suffering to identify if we look at it, interpret it in terms of the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. And if we interpret it according to what Buddha said at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, not to get in the weeds, then the Buddha was talking about once you're done and have cessation, there's nothing to identify. So the Buddha taught it that way at the first turning. And then at the second turning, you can interpret it according to Madhyamaka and say no is a non-affirming negative. Because the Buddha in the first turning of the wheel of Dharma said the 4 noble truths were truly existent, but then said that there's no this or that, and gave us a hint. And was interpreted a certain way at the first turning. And then Shakyamuni turned the second turning of the wheel of Dharma of the Heart Sutra, and Nagarjuna clarifies what a non-affirming negative is. So the first truth. This is the superior truth of suffering. We have to know how, what this statement is, how to identify, what suffering is. Suffering has to be identified, and that then look at how we would interpret this. There is no suffering to identify, etc. We already went over the 8 sufferings. We're in the midst of the 6 sufferings, where we find all about the uncertainty of cyclic existence and all these, things we think are so secure, change and then become what we don't think they could ever become. We learn about the uncertainty, and then we learn about the insatiability, how we're never satisfied, and how we take on these births again and again. And we then think I'm Jeff, or I think I'm Billy the goat, or I'll think I'm Willie the worm, or Johnny the hell being. I don't know if they have names. I'm going to, have this birth. And then I'm going to think all this time this birth is something else. And then I will have to shuck off that body. And that shucking off of the bodies doesn't mean like, oh, I get another one that's good if it was good. It means that now I have to go high to the low, high to the low. And then through this process that's so scary, we learn that we have no companions. And that's the 6th suffering. That was the 6 sufferings, by the way. So we learn that we have no companions through this process, because we learn there's not this certainty. We learn that our mothers could become our lover, and our mother in our next life could become our enemy that we kill. So we know that when we go to our next life, when we die, when we're ejected from this body, when we take birth, which is the ejection of the consciousness from this body, when this ejection takes place, we're alone, ready to find new beings we cling to as having some substantial existence. And this will happen over and over and over again. And the Buddha is trying to tell us about what the truth is, instead of what we think things are. We think they are a certain way. And the Buddha came to say, no, and this is why, and these are the reasons. And you can discover it yourself based upon analysis, reasoning, and having a good concentrated mind. And the more and more subtly you can understand what I'm talking about, the Buddha said, the more and more you will move towards the state that I'm in. Not me. I'm not in that state. I still have afflictive obstructions to omniscience. I don't have renunciation or bodhicitta or shamatha. But I know I have flawless steps to get those things. And I have confidence in them. And I have confidence in the steps and the things I'm talking to you about, because Rinpoche had confidence in them. Okay. So if you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there's grasping, you do not have the view. The prayer for the flourishing of Jitsongkapa's teaching. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketa, he made his vow to conquer and his offspring, praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog, his pure conduct practiced according to the conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned since he extensively sought out learning, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating all for the beings and the doctrine. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to the explanations of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the 3 highest higher trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the 2 stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle, hard essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the 3 beings paths, the quick-acting Lord Vaishravana Karmayama, and enlightenment. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. And we find embedded in that last stanza a prayer for all the long lives of the teachers who are of pure lineage and doctrine of the Nyingma Sacha Kaju Galup in there, because we're saying of the teaching, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons. So we can see that we're asking for this we're asking for this within that. We can see that in there. See stuff, in stuff. It's good. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with the Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lozan Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by this mantra of Vajrasattva, seeing Vajrasattva is inseparable from our root Lama, and imagining that white, red, and blue light rays and nectars are showering down on us and all sentient beings and transforming into white ohms, red ahs, and blue homes, and purifying our body, speech, and mind, and all sentient beings' body, speech, and mind, respectively, in that order. White ohms purifying body, red ahs purifying speech, blue homes purifying our mind. So any mistakes that I've made, I didn't mean to make them, may they be purified by this Vajrasattva mantra. Om Vajra, Om Benzazato Samaya Manabalai Benzazato Zina Bajida, the Meva Zutaka, Meva Zubuka, Meva Anurag, Meva Zavazini, made Rajazava Gamasuji, make it, Shian Guru Hom Ha, Bhagavan Savataka, Benzama, Benzababa, Ma, Samaya Safa, Home, Fate. May we always be protected by Paul and Lamo, who Rinpoche said was our protector deity. Jorama, 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 Jinjakalar, Jamorama, Jajajin, Jorama, 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 Jinjakalar, Jamo, Rama, Jajajin, Jorama, 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 Jinjakalar, Jorama, Jajajin, Jorama, 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 Jinjakalar, Jorama, Jajajin, Jorama, 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 Jinjakalar, Jorama, Rama, Jajajin, Jorama, 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 Jinjakalar, Jorama, Jajajin, Jorama, 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 Jinjakalar, Jorama, Jajajin, Jorama, Hongjo, Rama, Jo, Rama, Jo, Rama, Dunjo, Galara, Jemo, Rama, Ajadaja, Dunjo, Rulu, Honjo, anyone experiencing any obstacles to meeting with the Dharma, may those obstacles be ferociously, very, very swiftly removed with the power of this mantra of Drapasundri, the three wrathful protectors. Om Vajrapani Hayagriva Garuda Om Pe. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. Whatever dedication is praised to Supreme by the conquerors of Jerusalem the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Now a prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Chen Rezig in our world. Really a prayer that we are not separated from the Buddha. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. And anyone who doesn't know, Palden Lamo is the wrathful emanation of Tara. So just so you know, Rinpoche gave us a lot of Tara initiations. Anyone who's new, a lot of them. And I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, now a prayer of supplication to Namgyal Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, many of our root teacher. Passed away March 6th of 2022, and this was written by me on March 6, 2023. Finished anyway. A complex yogi. I'm going to just take a sip. I wanted to do that for a while. But my mind just wouldn't let my body pull the cup towards me. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Arya Tara. I fully prostrate, covering as many, here we are, as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, music, incense, candles, scented water, music, food and music purified by Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like a teacher who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of three capacities. Now the sound has stopped and all composite things are permanent. You told us that all your teachers passed away and understood the sadness in treating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. I hope you all put these teachings into practice this week and make this something that means something to you. Make it personal. If you don't know mudras, pretend you're playing your favorite instrument while you're making offerings, or etc. Painting your favorite picture. Imagine you're making offerings like this. Make it personal. And I hope to see you all on Thursday nights when we're teaching Lama Tsongkhapa's Source of All My Good. Thank you again.